He stepped through the glass doors of the boutique with hesitant steps, wearing nothing but a plain white t-shirt and gray sweatpants. His hair was slightly tousled, and his shoes were scuffed from years of honest wear. Around him, luxury screamed. From every corner, polished marble floors, spotlighted mannequins in silk suits, and the soft hum of classical music. A sales associate at the counter paused, her gaze narrowing as she took in his appearance. Then, without a word, she pressed a button beneath the counter. Moments later, a man in a sharply tailored navy blue suit approached, oozing authority and disdain. "Sir, are you lost?" the man asked, voice low but firm, glancing behind Liam at the lingering stares of well-dressed clients. Liam gave a small, polite smile. "Actually, I was looking for something special for my wife. It's our anniversary." The man didn't respond. Instead, he looked him up and down, as if scanning for hidden intentions. "I think you've mistaken this place for somewhere else. We don't carry discounted items here. Please leave." There was a pause, the kind of silence that stretches forever when a person is being judged by a room full of strangers. Whispers began behind racks of luxury bags. Someone chuckled. A woman murmured, "Security should have come sooner. I'm not here to cause trouble." Liam tried again, voice soft but sincere. "I just wanted to see if you need to go," the manager interrupted, now placing a firm hand on Liam's arm. "This is a luxury establishment, and we reserve the right to deny service." And just like that, he was escorted out, slowly, deliberately, under the glares of people who didn't know him, but had already decided who he was. Unbeknownst to everyone, a fashion blogger standing near the accessories counter had discreetly hit record on her phone, capturing the entire scene. She never expected it to be anything more than an outrageous moment, but it would soon become something much bigger. Outside, Liam stood still for a moment, blinking back a wave of something heavier than shame. Humiliation settled into his chest like cold steel. The automatic doors hissed shut behind him, and with them, the last sliver of dignity he carried inside. But what the boutique didn't know was that this man, the one they had just cast aside, in touch, was about to become the center of attention for reasons none of them could imagine. Because 2 hours later, a Rolls-Royce Phantom would stop right in front of those same glass doors, and everything would change. Long before the glass doors of that boutique closed behind him, Liam Carter had already opened countless doors for people who had none. He wasn't just a man in a white t-shirt and sweatpants. He was the founder and lifeblood of Hands of Hope, a non-profit organization that had built over 300 shelters for homeless single mothers and provided education and health care to more than 10,000 children. The idea for the foundation came during the darkest time in his life. Years ago, Liam lost his sister to complications during childbirth, a tragedy rooted in poverty and neglect. He vowed no one else should endure such a loss. Using the small inheritance she left behind, he started Hands of Hope in a rundown community center. With every paycheck from his teaching job and donations he personally sought, the foundation grew brick by brick. He never accepted a salary from the organization. He lived modestly, quietly. The money always went where it was needed most. Every worn-out sneaker, every basic meal he ate, it was all part of a bigger purpose. But he wasn't alone in this journey. Eleanor Brooks Carter entered his life during a charity gala where Liam had been invited to speak. Her family name was known across the country, heiress to a vast real estate empire, a brilliant architect, and one of the most sought-after designers for ultra-luxury properties. But what struck her wasn't Liam's speech. It was how he looked uncomfortable in a tuxedo, how he rushed out right after the event to help clean up the venue, how he hugged every single volunteer like they were family. Their connection was instant, genuine. Eleanor, despite her fortune, was tired of shallow relationships and empty circles. With Liam, she saw a world where wealth served a greater purpose. She began supporting Hands of Hope in secret, never attaching her name to any donation. Eventually, they married in a small ceremony by the sea. No media, no luxury, just love. Back in the present, sitting alone on a public bench outside the boutique, Liam stared at his reflection in a mirrored window. His face looked tired, not physically, emotionally. He began to wonder if the path he had chosen was the right one. Maybe they're right, he thought. Maybe in this world, kindness is weakness. Maybe I've been naive all along. For the first time in years, Liam Carter, the man who had rebuilt lives and stood beside the forgotten, felt like he was the one being forgotten. The memory of that security escort, the cold stares, the laughter echoing behind him, it replayed in his mind like a broken tape, and yet, deep down, something stirred. A quiet voice, the same one that guided him through every storm, every doubt. But for now, it was faint. He didn't know it yet, but while he sat in silence, a silver-blue Rolls-Royce Phantom was already on its way, driven not by revenge, but by love. And Eleanor. Eleanor was not one to let injustice go unanswered. In the neighborhoods no one wrote about, where streetlights flickered and sidewalks cracked under forgotten feet, Liam Carter was a name whispered, with gratitude. He was the man who remembered those the world overlooked. At the edge of the city, nestled between abandoned factories, sat the original Hands of Hope shelter. It was once an old warehouse, now painted in warm yellows and soft blues, covered with murals drawn by the very children who had found refuge there. Inside, a small brass plaque read, "To Emily, you were my beginning. May this place be someone else's." Emily was his sister. Her memory lived in every room, every child's laugh, every mother's tears of relief. One of the most touching stories came from a woman named Rosa, a mother of 3 who, after fleeing an abusive home, arrived with nothing but a backpack and fear in her eyes. Within months, thanks to Hands of Hope, she had a job, a safe apartment, and her kids were enrolled in school. Today, Rosa is one of the shelter's lead counselors. Liam never boasted about these stories. In fact, he rarely spoke of them unless asked. "The work speaks louder than I ever could," he once said to a local journalist who begged to do a feature on him. He declined. Fame, to Liam, was a distraction from service, but that same humility that made him admirable also made him invisible in a world obsessed with appearances. As he sat beneath the boutique's towering signage, memories of his work flickered through his mind like an old film reel. The nights spent building bunk beds with volunteers, the early mornings picking up leftover pastries from bakeries to feed the shelters, the moments of joy, small but mighty, when a child took their first steps in a safe space. And still, here he was, treated like a trespasser because he didn't look the part. His phone buzzed in his pocket. A message from Eleanor. "Where are you, love? I just saw something disturbing online. I'm coming." He didn't reply. He couldn't. His hands were still clenched from the encounter. But he looked up, and for a second the sky seemed to clear. He thought about Emily, about Rosa, about every single person who had thanked him, not with money or praise, but with tears and smiles and renewed hope. No, he wasn't the one who should feel ashamed. Across the city, Eleanor was already in the back seat of her Rolls-Royce, watching the viral video unfold. The boutique, the man in sweatpants, the guard's hand on his arm, her jaw clenched. "Stop the car," she told the driver. The car turned around, and the world was about to witness what happens when truth walks back through the same doors that once slammed shut on dignity. 2 hours had passed. Inside the boutique, Mitchell Graves leaned against the counter, recounting the earlier incident to a pair of regular clients. He laughed as he mimicked Liam's voice. "Said he was looking for an anniversary gift?" He scoffed. "In that outfit? I don't care if you're Gandhi. You don't shop here in gym clothes." The clients laughed along, sipping champagne offered by the boutique. No one questioned the story. No one thought twice. In this world, image was everything, and Mitchell was proud to be its gatekeeper. That was when the hum of a powerful engine echoed from the street. Heads turned. A silver-blue Rolls-Royce Phantom, elegant and imposing, glided to a perfect stop directly in front of the boutique's entrance. Its presence was impossible to ignore, not just for its beauty, but because it blocked the front doors completely. A valet rushed forward, confused. He didn't recognize the car, nor did he expect the door to open with such deliberate grace. From the back seat stepped Eleanor Brooks Carter, tall, poised, wrapped in a midnight navy coat that whispered power. She stood for a moment, taking in the boutique's facade. Her eyes didn't blink. She walked straight in, flanked by a sharply dressed man holding a leather-bound portfolio. Mitchell's smile faltered. "Can I help you?" he asked, voice shifting to polished politeness. "Eleanor." didn't smile. "I'm looking for the manager who removed a man from this store earlier today." Mitchell straightened. "That was me, yes. I ensure our clientele remains protected from what?" she interrupted, her tone calm but razor-sharp. "From people who don't meet your dress code?" The clients, who had been laughing before, fell silent. "I'm not sure I understand," Mitchell began, but his words were cut off by Eleanor handing her assistant the portfolio. The man opened it, revealing printed screenshots, the boutique's logo, a viral video, hundreds of comments, and one headline: "Local hero humiliated in Beverly Hills boutique." The blood drained from Mitchell's face. Eleanor took a slow step closer. "That man is my husband, Liam Carter." A pause. "No one moved. I suggest," she continued, her voice still composed, "that you begin remembering what service and humanity actually mean, before you lose more than just your reputation." Mitchell tried to speak, but nothing came. Around them, staff members looked at each other nervously. One associate discreetly removed her name tag and walked to the back. Eleanor turned to leave. "Oh, and cancel all your brand's contracts with our design firm. Effective immediately." Outside, Liam stood by the car. He hadn't planned to come back, but Eleanor had insisted. "You need to see this," she'd said. As she approached, he looked up at her. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes," she said softly, taking his hand. "I did." The doors behind them remained open, but for once, it was the people inside who felt out of place, and it wasn't over yet. Within minutes of Eleanor's confrontation, the internet had already erupted. The video, discreetly recorded by a well-known fashion blogger who had been browsing near the accessory counter, was now everywhere. She had posted it with a single caption: "They kicked out Liam Carter." Yes, that Liam Carter. The clip, raw and unfiltered, showed the entire scene. The dismissive glances, the cold voice of the manager, and Liam being ushered out as if he didn't belong. It was short, but powerful. And in a world of quick judgments and viral truths, it spread like wildfire. His name trended on every platform. Tweets poured in, flooded with disbelief, outrage, and support. Former shelter residents, donors, volunteers, and even celebrities began sharing personal stories of how Liam's foundation, Hands of Hope, had transformed their lives. Inside the boutique, Mitchell Graves stood frozen behind the counter. He wasn't just the manager anymore. He had become the face of arrogance, ignorance, and everything wrong with a world obsessed with appearances. His phone buzzed again and again, each vibration another tremor in his collapsing reputation. Outside, Liam remained by the car, watching through the glass. People now stared at him not with suspicion, but with recognition. A woman whispered to her friend, "That's him. He's the one who built all those shelters." Another nodded. "And they kicked him out for sweatpants?" But Liam didn't smile. He wasn't here to celebrate. This wasn't validation. It was exposure. And with exposure came discomfort. Inside the boutique, Eleanor paused before returning to the car. She glanced over her shoulder, not at Mitchell, but at the young cashier who had left during the incident. Their eyes met, and the girl looked down, visibly ashamed. Back in the passenger seat, Eleanor rested a hand on Liam's knee. "You didn't deserve that," she said softly. "I know," he replied, but there was a heaviness in his voice. "It's just, when it happens in front of the world, it makes you question if everything you've done even matters." "Don't say that," she whispered, her tone unwavering. "They didn't see you. They saw what they expected to see." He nodded slightly, staring out at the boutique that had once stripped him of dignity, and now couldn't. "Stop trending for it." And then, almost inaudibly, he said, "I've spent my life teaching people to look beyond appearances, and in just one afternoon, I nearly forgot that lesson myself." Eleanor leaned her head on his shoulder, eyes closed. "For a moment. But you didn't. That's why you're not like them." As the street continued buzzing with energy, a small group gathered near the Rolls-Royce. They weren't influencers or paparazzi, just ordinary people. One woman, clutching a child's hand, stepped forward hesitantly. "Mr. Carter," she said, gently, "you don't know me, but we stayed at one of your shelters 3 years ago. You gave us food, a bed, safety. You saved us." Liam's expression softened. He stepped out of the car, bent down to the child, and asked with a warm smile, "Are you taking good care of your mom?" The boy nodded earnestly. "That's the most important job in the world," Liam said, tousling the boy's hair. Inside, Mitchell watched the exchange from behind the counter. This time, he was the one being judged, powerless, exposed, forgotten, just as he had once made Liam feel. But Liam wasn't seeking revenge. He had returned, not with fury, but with quiet grace, and that would change everything. The next morning, the boutique opened its doors under a storm it hadn't seen coming. News vans lined the street. Camera crews clustered outside, jockeying for angles. Influencers live-streamed. Curious passers-by whispered. But none of them were there for sales or fashion. They had come for one reason: to see if the man in the viral video would return. And he did. At exactly 10 a.m., the silver-blue Rolls-Royce Phantom pulled up once again, parting the crowd with quiet majesty. Phones rose, voices hushed. From the back seat, Liam Carter stepped out. Alone, no entourage, no PR team. Just him, still wearing the same plain white t-shirt and gray sweatpants. It was a silent, powerful statement. "I'm not here to prove I belong. I always did." He nodded politely at the crowd, then stepped toward the glass doors that had once closed behind him with cold finality. This time, they opened automatically, as if recognizing him now. Inside, the air changed instantly. Staff members straightened nervously. Shoppers paused mid-step. The new boutique manager, brought in after Mitchell Graves had been placed on immediate leave, approached, unsure whether to offer a handshake or an apology. "Mr. Carter," he said, voice tense but respectful, "please know how deeply sorry we are for what happened. We've prepared a formal apology and—" "I'm not here for that," Liam interrupted, calm and direct. "I came to finish what I started." He walked past him without waiting for a reply, straight to the display case he had barely reached the day before. A simple, elegant bracelet sat there, understated, yet timeless. The kind of piece that said, "I see you, not I paid for you." He picked it up and brought it to the counter. The cashier's hands trembled slightly as she processed the transaction. Behind her, whispers buzzed through the store. Some recognized him. Others were just now realizing who he was. No one looked away. Liam glanced around the boutique, not to gloat, but to make sure they were truly seeing him this time. Then he turned to the staff. "You don't need to remember my name," he said quietly, voice steady. "Just remember this: kindness costs less than judgment, and it lasts a lot longer." He took the small gift bag and headed toward the door. And that's when Eleanor entered. No coat, no makeup, no entourage, just a woman, here for her husband. She walked up beside him, holding a thin stack of folders. "We're also here on behalf of Hands of Hope," she said, handing the new manager a document. "We'd like to offer your entire team a chance to volunteer at one of our shelters. No cameras, no press, just people helping people." The manager blinked, caught off guard. A few staff members exchanged glances. Some looked down. One associate, the same girl who had laughed the day before, bit her lip and stepped back. "You don't have to accept it," Eleanor added gently. "But sometimes, perspective is the only luxury that really changes lives." Then Liam added, almost in a whisper, "Who knows? You might meet someone in sweatpants who changes yours." He didn't wait for a response. He simply took Eleanor's hand, and together they walked back through the doors, the same ones that had once been a symbol of exclusion, now wide open in silence. Outside, the crowd didn't cheer right away. They watched, processing. Then, someone clapped, then another, then many. But Liam didn't wave. He didn't bask. He simply nodded, acknowledging the moment not as a spectacle, but as a reminder that what happened the day before was never about revenge. It was, and always had been, about dignity. As Liam and Eleanor walked away, the boutique's doors slowly closed behind them, not with the cold click of rejection, but with the quiet weight of reflection. Inside, silence settled over. The staff like fog. The new manager stood near the counter, still holding the volunteer packet Eleanor had left. It was simple, practical. Inside were printed pages listing shelter locations, volunteer sign-up times, and one line at the top in bold, "Come see the world through someone else's eyes." It wasn't branding. It wasn't damage control. It was an invitation, the kind that doesn't come from PR firms, but from people who mean it. A few employees stood frozen in place. Others looked to the girl who had once laughed during Liam's removal. She now stared down at the floor, the shame too loud to ignore. After a long silence, she whispered, "Do they really let people like us help?" The manager glanced down at the papers, then back up at his team. "Maybe it's time we tried," he said. "Maybe we should see what we've been missing." Later that afternoon, he signed up the entire staff for a volunteer weekend. No social media posts, no press releases, just names on a list, and a quiet decision to show up. Back across the city, in a sunlit cafe tucked into a quiet street, Liam and Eleanor sat in a small corner booth. No paparazzi, no cameras, just peace. She stirred her tea while watching him silently. He had barely touched his drink. "You were incredible in there," she said at last. "I didn't feel incredible," he admitted with a soft exhale. "I just didn't want to become what they expected me to be." He looked down, then out the window. "I almost let their judgment change me. And that's what hurt the most." Eleanor reached across the table and took his hand. Her fingers warm and steady. "But you didn't," she said softly. "You stayed you. That's the part they'll never understand." His phone buzzed. He glanced down. A message from Rosa. The subject line simply read, "From the shelter." Inside was a picture. Her son holding up a handmade sign that said, "The good guy won." A tight smile formed at the edge of Liam's mouth. His eyes blinked a little slower, a little wetter. It wasn't about winning, it had never been, but knowing that his silence, his restraint, had spoken louder than any angry headline. That meant something. Back at the boutique, a subtle transformation was underway. Gone were the postures of superiority and indifference. In their place, measured tones, softer greetings, longer eye contact. Nothing dramatic, nothing performative, but something was changing. The young fashion blogger who had first posted the viral clip returned later that week. This time, she didn't bring her phone out. She didn't ask for interviews. She just stood by the window and watched Liam walk out, this time with a small bracelet bag in hand. She posted a second video that evening. It was just a still frame of Liam walking down the steps beside Eleanor. Her caption read, "He didn't come for revenge. He came for peace. We should all be more like Liam." The post exploded, but Liam never saw it. He wasn't chasing likes. He wasn't checking metrics. He was sitting at home, barefoot, cooking dinner with Eleanor, the same woman who had once seen past his worn tuxedo and into his soul. They didn't talk much that night. They didn't need to, because what had started as an act of cruelty had been transformed into a wave of empathy, not through noise, but through presence. And in living rooms and group chats and cafe conversations around the country, people were asking themselves a new kind of question. What if the next person I judged was actually a Liam Carter? And just like that, the man they tried to erase had quietly rewritten the script. In the end, Liam Carter didn't need headlines. He didn't need trending hashtags, viral applause, or even the boutique's formal apology, because redemption was never the goal. He had walked back through those glass doors not to make a statement, but to make peace with himself, to reclaim a piece of dignity that had been carelessly torn away, and to remind the world that humility doesn't mean weakness. In a society obsessed with status, Liam's story offered a different kind of power, one that didn't roar, but resonated, one that wasn't measured in what you wore, but in what you stood for. He didn't change who he was to fit in. He stood as he always had, quiet, kind, unwavering, and made the world adjust to him instead. Mitchell Graves was eventually terminated. The boutique issued its statement, but those headlines faded quickly, as they always do. What didn't fade were the conversations, the ripple effects. The boutique staff, now weekly volunteers at the local shelter, began telling a different kind of story to customers, not about inventory, but about impact. The young boy who had once shaken Liam's hand outside the store, he told his teacher that week he wanted to grow up to be someone who builds homes for heroes. And the influencer who started it all? She launched a series called People We Overlook, dedicating her platform to sharing untold stories of everyday dignity. But Liam? He stayed exactly the same. Back to morning walks and evening meals. Back to sorting shelter donations by hand. Back to hugging kids he'd never met like they were his own. And maybe that's the greatest lesson of all, that you don't need to wear a crown to lead. You don't need a podium to speak the truth, and you don't need revenge to restore your worth, because sometimes the most powerful justice is to simply keep being good in a world that didn't expect you to be. So, if you've ever felt invisible, if you've been judged for your clothes, your silence, your story, remember Liam Carter. Remember that behind every quiet man in a plain white t-shirt, there might be a legacy of kindness waiting to be seen. And maybe there's a little bit of Liam in all of us. We just have to choose to let it out. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you pause for a moment, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, leave a comment. What part of Liam's journey hit you the hardest? Let's build a community that judges less and understands more. Because the next simple man you see on the street might just be the greatest person you'll ever meet.